we've got to do is make sure that we are organizing the Arab world, the Middle East, the Muslim world, along with the international community, to isolate this cancer, this particular brand of extremism that is first and foremost destructive to the Muslim world and the Arab world and North Africa and the people who live there.
Organize the Arab world and isolate the cancer of terrorism. President Obama speaking yesterday in Estonia as we continue talking about the troubling rise of ISIS and the American, indeed the international response. Let's call back in both Ted Poe, my former colleague, still serving in Congress from the state of Texas, and also a former colleague, Pete Hoekstra, like me now an ex-congressman, the former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Pete Skyping in from Washington, D.C. Pete, isolating the so-called cancer is not so easy. Give us the intelligence from the region and all the players at work. Yesterday, we heard from Pat Buchanan, you got to get Syria involved with young Mr. Assad on our side. And, of course, the Iranians seem to be in opposition to ISIS. So this is kind of a curious situation that's developing now in that region.
Well, it really is, JD, but you know, the president's talking about organizing the Middle East and organizing the Arab world. We had an organization in place. It was organized. We had Egypt, you know, with Mubarak. They helped us significantly in the war on terror. They helped us and supported us with our efforts in Iraq and Afghanistan. We had Libya with Gaddafi. You know, we flipped Gaddafi. He became an ally in the war on terror. The president, you know, led the effort to get rid of Mubarak, led the effort to get rid of Gaddafi. We had Assad bringing stability to Syria and keeping the radical jihadists under control there. And the president, you know, gave some indication to the elements in Syria that we were willing to see Assad go. So the president broke it. Now he's talking about putting it back together. He does need to put it back together, but we had it together, you know, 3 years ago.
So, Ted, you're joining us from Newsmax New York, but when you're back in your district in Texas and you hold a town hall meeting and somebody asks, now wait a minute, Congressman, to get ISIS, we have to include somebody like Iran in our alliance? Are you serious? How do you answer a constituent with that kind of question?
Well, I tell them we don't include Iran. Iran has their own mischief agenda, and I don't think the United States should nor needs to work with Iran to defeat ISIS. We should be leading to defeat ISIS. That should be our responsibility with the NATO group. As Pete mentioned, what relationships we had with countries that really worked with the U.S., the United States destroyed all those relationships. It will take years to rebuild a coalition of normal countries in that region to work together with the U.S. They don't trust us, and there's a reason why they don't trust us. We're inconsistent with our foreign policy when we have a foreign policy. So we don't deal with Iran. I don't think we should work with Iran. The United States needs a strategic plan, overall plan to directly go after ISIS and do what is necessary to eliminate them. Probably not with boots on the ground, but use aircraft, use drones, support the Kurds who, like Americans, can want to defend their own countryside, and also use covert operations. Have a plan, Mr. President, and let's proceed with it.
And of course, America is involved because Americans have been killed. Pete, the latest video, I don't know if you have any background information about it, but it seems that strikingly similar, hideously similar to the first video. Don't know if it was shot at the same time, but it appeared the same executioner, someone with a British accent. What do we know about the people who killed these two Americans?
Well, we know their extreme brutality. They've also signaled their next step. They're going to execute the British journalists that they put on display. They're signaling where they're going. And I just want to make one other point, JD. I can't help but really strongly reinforce the point that Ted made. There is absolutely no reason for us to engage with Iran. That would be a huge mistake. We need to deal with this Islamic State without Iran. Iran poses other threats to us and to the region. They are a destabilizer. We can't get into bed with Iran. Even the discussion of getting into bed with Iran and partnering with them shows kind of how bankrupt our foreign policy has become.
Well, we got the message from both you guys, and that is do not include Iran in any type of anti-ISIS alliance in any way, shape, fashion, or form. Now, Pete, I want a couple other things in terms of intelligence. State Department yesterday said the video of the execution of Sotloff was shot at a different time than the Foley execution. How do they know that, and is there some other intel we're able to grasp from this second video?
They were able to tell that primarily, I think, through the facial hair of the second victim, and you know, because he was also included in the first video, and they could see that there was a marked difference in the facial appearance between the two videos. So, you know, that's relatively easy to determine. The other things in terms of where the location and that is, I don't think we've been able to identify that. There's not enough information. It would be nice to know. I'm sure they're trying to get as much information as they can so that they can potentially identify in what part of Syria or Iraq these guys may have been held, so that they can put all of our intelligence assets to work to try to identify where they're being held today, and maybe at some point in the future have a rescue operation. But I think that's going to be very, very difficult.
Ted, you chair the subcommittee on terrorism, part of the full committee on foreign affairs. We're following here at Newsmax, our parent website, Newsmax.com, following very closely a story in which an ex-cop who happens to be Catholic says he wants to join ISIS. What is the allure of a terror regime like ISIS for Americans?
Well, some of them are looking for an opportunity to do bad things to other people. They like the excitement of being in a terrorist group. Others are persuaded from the philosophy. And many of them are being recruited on Twitter. Twitter should take down these radical ISIS sites. They're giving aid and comfort to the enemy. Federal law already requires them to do that. They're not doing it. And they're getting recruited through social media here in the United States to go fight against our interests and against Americans. So there's an allure there for some people who want to be marginalized, if you will, to do criminal things. There are people like that in this country. We should be aware of that. But one thing we need to do is go after those websites or those Twitter sites, and Twitter ought to take those down. Not allow that recruiting in the United States of Americans to kill Americans.
About 2.5 minutes remain in this portion of our program. We began our discussion here listening to the president talking about getting an Arab alliance together. It is worth noting the United Arab Emirates issued a statement urging an international coalition to confront growing terrorism in the region. Here is a portion of their statement, quoting now, "As terrorism is a global scourge that knows no borders and draws from all parts of the world, the international community must work towards a unified strategy to face this issue at all levels." So you've got UAE stepping up in pretty clear language. Pete, yesterday our president started with resolute language, then backed off, talking about a, quote, manageable problem, making ISIS a manageable problem. Your take on the president, can he take a lesson from the UAE in leadership?
Well, I think I'll give the president a little bit of credit. We're not going to solve this problem in 2.5 years and what's remaining of his term, JD. This is this problem has now been with us for almost one generation, depending on exactly when you're going to say it started, whether the bombing of the barracks in Lebanon in 1987, the first attack on the World Trade Center in 1991. We need to realize this is going to be a long-term conflict. It's going to take us another 20 years to resolve it. Contain it today, but with the goal of ultimately defeating it. We got to have a short and a medium and a long-term goal. I'm glad that the UAE, Britain, and others are saying we want to decimate these folks. We want to eliminate the threat, put together the international coalition, but recognize that we can't keep stopping or starting and then stopping and starting and stopping. It has to be a consistent long-term effort to defeat and eliminate this problem from the Middle East.
Gentlemen, we're going to have to pause right now. Ted Poe, we thank you for your time. Look forward to talking to you again. Pete, we're going to bring you back later to talk about the missing Libyan jetliners. Seems they've shown up in some videos, and that's mighty troubling. Now remember, for the latest in-depth analysis and forecasting on ISIS, go to lignet.com.